We dedicate this week of the NC F&B podcast to a two-part series celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Triangle Wine Experience, benefiting the Frankie Lemmon School.
You're listening to the NC F&B podcast, part of the OG Podcast Network. The NC F&B podcast takes you behind the scenes of North Carolina's food and beverage industry. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at NCFBpod. This episode sponsored in part by Food Scene. That's foodseen.com, providing professional photography, social media management, video production, and website design. And now, enjoy the show.
So what's your name?
Mary.
And what's your name?
Samuel.
What's your favorite color, Mary?
Pink.
Pink? Kind of like the scarf you're wearing right now?
Yeah, and even purple violet.
Purple and violet? Wow. And Samuel, what's your favorite color?
Red, orange, and blue, and green, and pink.
That's a lot of favorite colors.
You're kind of down for all the colors.
Mary and Samuel are just two of the many adorable children that are students of the Frankie Lemmon School.
In the early 1990s, a group of friends gathered to celebrate their love of wine and to raise money for the Frankie Lemmon School. The gathering became a tradition and eventually resulted in the formation of the Frankie Lemmon Foundation, a nonprofit organization that is the school's primary funding source.
Each year, the foundation organizes a series of wine-related charitable events, including the Triangle Wine Experience, to generate proceeds which fund the tuition-free school. In the tradition of the Triangle Wine Experience, the first Thursday of February marks the day when all participating restaurants plan a multi-course dinner paired with some of the best winemakers in the world.
So we kick off today's episode in the back alley of Raleigh's newest and best oyster bar, St. Roch.
We just finished dinner at the event, and now we speak with chef owner Sonny Gerhardt, general manager and wine director Sean Empstead,
investor and supporter of the evening Eric Surface, along with the owner of Lioco Wine Company, Matt Licklider, who is paired with tonight's dinner at St. Roch. Well, let's bring everyone into the full circle. Yeah. So the purpose of this podcast today is to discuss Triangle Wine Experience. So I believe this is the 25th year anniversary of the Triangle Wine Experience. And for those that don't know what this is, it's a collection of winemakers, chefs, restaurateurs, sommeliers, and guests that want fantastic food and put their money where it should really matter. And so all of this is funding the Frankie Lemmon Foundation, a school that benefits children with special needs and really becomes an integral part into families that need the help for their children. And so I myself, when I was running Midtown Grill for 3 years, did 3 years of participating with Triangle Wine Experience. We had fantastic wineries come in. And so with us, we have Matt Licklider of Lioco Wines, who participated with Sonny Gerhardt and Eric Surface and Sean Empstead over at St. Roch. And we're all standing out on the patio right now. There's cigarettes, there's chartreuse, there's bourbon, and there's, I think, CNC Music Factory was playing in the background. Yes. So let's start with wine. Let's go from there. So, Matt, you and I know each other. We've been talking to get on the podcast for a long time. Back in BevCon days, we were all hanging out, and I've known you because I actually sold your wine in Los Angeles when I worked for a distributor that peddled your juice. So I've known you for a while, but would you give us just a brief background as to who Lioco is and why you're here?
Yeah. We're all restaurant people. So my founding partner, and my wife and I all came out of restaurants, sommelier, wine buyers, hospitality people. Mostly we're drinking French wine, European wines, real traditional food-friendly wines, but living in California and really wanting to see more of a European restaurant style of wine being made locally in California. So we kind of pulled our resources together and made a few hundred cases of wine. This was back in 2005. Just kind of pulled it together, and here we are 14 years into it, still kind of doing it together.
Well, and humbly, you didn't mention exactly who some of the people were that were working with you, but Kevin O'Connor was helped get Lioco going.
Yeah.
Kevin O'Connor back in the day, I knew him because I worked for Wolfgang Puck for 5 years, and Kevin was the somm at Spago for a long time. I think he followed Michael Harrington and also Michael Bonacorsi after he passed. So a long line of amazing sommeliers and all that. And the joke was that you two guys were basically like saying, man, I love French wine, I love Burgundy, I love all this. Why is California not doing this? Why can't we make wine with like high acid, low alcohol, not flabby, but like good angular wines? And that was your intention. Like that's essentially what you guys are making.
I mean, the joke is that really Lioco was born in the back alley behind Spago.
Yeah.
Like while we were tasting Burgundy, spitting in the storm drain, we were kind of talking trash.
You weren't really spitting. Come on.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
But we were talking trash about California wine, and just lamenting about how the wines just didn't really fit with the kind of food we like to eat. And so that's really, that was what launched our ship, was like, why can't we make wine here like they make it over there? And we got going, and we just kind of learned a little bit every year and continued to trade in on relationships that we had in the industry. Since all of us came from this world, we were able to cash in on some relationships to get access to some great fruit, some great vineyard sites, and we're still at it. My wife and I now own and operate the winery. Kevin went back into the restaurant world because he's a masochist. But so my wife and I kind of hold the flag now. And
John Raytek was your winemaker at the time, but who's making the wine now? Please say you.
Yeah, nope. It takes a young back to make wine. I got 47 years on my chassis, so we have another very talented enologist on the team now. His name is Drew Huffine. And Drew's a friend of ours, been around, knows us. We share a bunch of vineyard sources together. He and his wife have a real small boutique label called Trail Marker. And when John decided to move on, we talked to Drew about coming on, and he jumped at the chance. So,
any stylistic changes from back in the day?
No, it's been pretty much the same from day one. I mean, it's sort of the guiding hand is go get good raw material and then get the F out of the way. I mean, it's probably...
Yeah,
not unlike what Chef would say. It's all about raw material and getting really good material, and then just trusting in it, and not getting too fancy with it.
Yeah, as we always preach, it's great wine is made in the vineyard and not at the winery. Right. So, and I think you guys definitely adhere to that principle.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep going around the room. Yeah. So, Eric Surface, you're if anyone dines in Raleigh or in the Triangle, you've seen Eric sit at a table near you at some point, because he's almost a professional eater at this point, I'm going to say. I've gone out to restaurants.
Does he get paid to eat?
I think he's paying a lot. Yeah. But you eventually put that money or belly or wherever it is where it makes sense, and you help to get St. Roch off the ground. Is that right? You're part of this?
So I'm a very small part of this, and one of the things that, as an investor in a restaurant, you just really want to help the chef succeed. And Sonny, I've known Sonny for 5 or 6 years now, and I first started coming in at Jewel and just was a regular here. And a funny story, I came in here maybe 100 times because it was my second office to have breakfast and just work. And sure. I didn't meet Sonny until I actually went to a dinner at the Charleston Wine and Food Festival, where he came with Ashley Christensen, and we were actually at the signature dinner at Fig. And I happened to meet him, and she introduced him as the chef at Jewel. And I'm like, wow, I eat in Jewel all the time. This is great. And we've just become friends. And I just wanted to help Sonny open his restaurant.
That's really cool. Nice. And you've been very generous about connecting the dots with a lot of the people in this food industry just by being kind of a social maven. You're like, hey man, you should know this person, you should know that person, and connecting people. And that's really important in this industry, is putting people together so that they can succeed.
I just like good food and wine and great, interesting people. So it's great to hang out. I just have a good time.
That's great. And then lastly here we have Sean Umstead. That's a very strong name right there, by the way.
There's a lot of weight in the triangle.
So Sean, you are the general manager, but you also did a lot to do with tonight's pairing. You guys all were talking about the wine, the cuisine, making it match. Give me an example of something that you thought about tonight with tonight's said menu and some of the wine that went on. Give me just one aha moment where you said, this is going to make sense, and why?
Sure. Well, I in leading up to this,
better make me look good.
Yeah. Well, I know Sonny can cook.
It's a big task,
right? So I've worked with Sonny for now over a year here at St. Roch. I know his cuisine. I know his style of food. It's not super protein-centric, though it is very flavor-forward, which makes for a very nice combination where you don't have to have really overbearing wines to complement kind of the food and the sauce and the proteins he likes to use.
Sure.
So I built a wine list that is like 50 wines strong, and they all are either in that kind of old world style, or they are like Lioco's wines, which occupy a place on our By the Glass list, and that's our top end domestic Pinot too. So it was a pretty good match in the first place. I think I didn't have the aha moment until we tried a couple dishes. We did a braised short rib tonight with blood orange ponzu and grits, which to me screams like a maybe like a Zinfandel, something with like a lot of deep or like a gonzo flavors.
It was really rich flavors, so it was kind of one of those wines where, those pairings where you're like, how are you going to do this?
So I stole that. We made one too many, and I stole it and went to the back, and that was the only one that I did the quick taste and eat with real fast, and I was like, oh, this worked really well. I was really excited about it.
My favorite pairing of the night was the short rib with that wine. I think
that's what we commented about that too.
Oh no, that pairing was awesome, and not to mention that the first pairing of the night was a soup, and a curried soup, which for those in the wine world that know, soup is always the most difficult to pair wine with because you have a liquid with a liquid, and it's hard, and that was cool. It was a cool pairing.
It was super low calorie, like you were going to be able to get on the treadmill tomorrow. I'm kidding. It felt like I was it was straight butter and cream.
So just to give people, so that first dish was a coconut curry clam roast. You had lump crab, roasted tomato, lime, crab, and then a whole toast point there, and then it was paired with the Lioco Demuth Vineyard, which unfortunately this will be the swan song vintage of it, 2015, but super lean Chablis style Chardonnay.
I will say to all people in restaurants, use your resources. If you have a question, like we emailed Matt, see what people think. Like, people are receptive to it. If you say, I want to do this and this, he was very, very keen on saying, do it, but curry can be hot. The hot things are sort of the enemy of my Chardonnay, so
that's a good and a humble point to make, because a lot of somms won't they'll trust their own judgment and that's it. But it's like, hey, why don't you talk to the guy that actually works the vineyards and knows the wine pretty well? He's going to probably give you a good example.
We've done probably 300 of these wine dinners.
He's also going to be here, so you probably want to make the food work if you can.
Yeah, you don't want to get on Matt's bad side.
It's not science, and we were talking about that tonight. Putting food and wine together is a real art form. It's a lot of trial and error. It's experience. But it's you never really know. The rubber never really hits the road until the night of.
Yeah.
And what I was going to say to you guys, tipping my hat to you in the kitchen, because we did take some risks tonight. We didn't just do oysters and Sauvignon Blanc. We didn't do classic pairings. We kind of took some risks, and I think it carried it. I think it's a testament to the chef that he was able to do a curry dish with Chardonnay and then a spicy Andoline sausage with a Chardonnay again but that had squid in it. There were some things that I learned tonight, actually, that I'd like to maybe recycle in future days.
I got to ask Sonny about that inspiration for that dish. We're talking about the andouille sausage that was stuffed in essentially the ring of a calamari or of a squid. Yeah. I've never seen that before. Is that like a technique that's common? That looked really new to me.
I don't think it's something I've never done before, but it's certainly not something that's terribly unique. I think a squid body is sort of a natural substitute for casing, for pork casing, and so we wanted to do a little bit of seafood. I made that. We sent Matt the menu, and he was like, that looks great, but be careful with the sweetness and the spice. And I was like, all right, let's tone it down. The andouille is not really that spicy. It's got a little bit of, it's spicy, but it's not. It's got a little bit of that cayenne heat on the finish. Most of the spice comes from allspice. So, and I was like, we made it. And andouille is typically smoked, and I wasn't going to smoke it. until we made it and stuffed it and cooked it, and we were kind of like R&Ding it. You know, it's like as you go. Like I hadn't done most of the stuff before. Like everything's good and in theory, and then you go to put it together, and then you're like, shit, I just fucked up. But and
but
then
it works.
by then it's too late. So then, I wasn't necessarily. That's what everybody keeps telling me, but I think everything was good.
It worked really well, and I had the opportunity as the host of the event to go around and talk to everybody at the table and ask them what dishes they liked, and most of the people named 2 dishes, not just one that they liked. And a lot of people would be like, oh, I love the curry and the squid, or I love the curry and the short rib. So I think it was an overall successful menu, Sonny. Great job.
Yeah. So just to get an idea of how this Triangle Wine experience works, how does it happen that you guys get paired together? Was that a choice of you guys, or did somebody say, hey, I think this cuisine and this wine would work, or how does that go?
I'm not 100% certain how that works. I think we talked about...
Yeah. Just to give a background on that, there's a lot of dinners going on tonight throughout the Triangle of different wineries pairing.
40 or 41 dinners.
40, 41 restaurants simultaneously do a multi-course dinner with a winery paired with, typically I think almost all of them were from California. And so, we're like meshing these 2 amazing industries together for one night, and so everyone's eating tonight. If you're not at one of these restaurants, I don't know what you've done.
Yeah, seriously.
Right.
But so Eric, I know a little bit about how this pairing goes. How did it work for you guys? Why'd you get Lioco?
So real simple. Eliza Kraft Olander is the one who makes all the pairings between the restaurants and the wineries. And I had talked to, when Eliza asked me to sponsor the dinner here, of course you can't say no to Eliza. So I had talked to Sean and to Sonny about what wineries were on their short list. And I sent the short list. Lioco was at the top. And I sent it to Eliza and said, hey, if we could really get a Lioco, we would love to do that. Yeah. And so she made that happen. But I also think that you requested St. Roch too.
Oh, so it's like a love connection. We'll be back in 2 and 2.
I had dinner here last time I was in town and just loved it, and thought, I'd love to do a dinner with these guys. Just the style of that food would be so exciting to put next to our wine. So I think it was in the stars. Clearly, it was that blood super blue moon. What do they call it?
That's cool.
Well, gents, thank you very much. This was fantastic. We're going to take a little break. You'll hear a word from our sponsor. When we come back, we're actually going to be at the trade tasting where all the wineries meet the very next day. So hopefully our hangovers will be pretty mellow and chill, and we'll talk to some really cool people about wine. But thank you guys.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks.
So we are here at the Frankie Lemmon School and Foundation with Executive Director Scott Troutman.
Our goal is to put any child into a public kindergarten. Now, if they're a special needs child, they'll have assistance, but most of the Wake County public schools are equipped to handle that. But our goal is to put them into a main public school when they leave here.
Success defined.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As the weekend continues, the Thursday dining event is followed by a breakfast at the Frankie Lemmon School, where winemakers and chefs of the event are welcome to eat and spend time with the kids at the school.
Friday afternoon sets up a trade tasting in the heart of Raleigh, North Carolina. We, the NC F&B podcast, set up a portable studio and were fortunate enough to speak with a few major contributors to the wine industry. First up, we chat with the owner of Climat and Clendenen Wines, winemaker and legend, Jim Clendenen.
We're sitting down right now with an institution in American winemaking, especially when you talk about Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, and it's a sincere honor for me. You're definitely one of the winemakers that I've always admired and looked up to in my career in wine, Mr. Jim Clendenen of Climat and Clendenen Family Wines.
Thank you. I like that. I've never been called an institution before. Yeah. I've been called all that iconic, pioneering, self-deluding, infamous, all that kind of stuff. It's really good.
It's kind of my thing. I like to give people, new, fresh nicknames.
So Matt and I first met, I'm from California. He spent some time in California, and we were working at a restaurant in Marina Del Rey. We carried your wines, and actually I've been up to Climat many times. I also knew Bob
Lindquist, sure.
through Coupe and all that, and his wife Luisa when she had Verdad, and
still does.
Right. And we were pouring that by the glass. We were doing
Bob came into the restaurant to taste us on that wine himself. I remember
the Albarino, the Tempranillo, and the Rosé that she was making. I think from Tempranillo.
Grenache.
It was from Grenache. Yeah, I guess you would know because it was a co-op, right?
We have shared the building since 1989.
Wow.
The first wines that Bob ever made in 1982, I went to the Zaca Mesa facility where he was making them so that I could show him what I'd learned working in France.
Yeah.
And he goes, you can't just throw these clusters as whole clusters straight into the fermenter. And I said, what a bet. And I took buckets full of them. He made a 1982 Syrah that was the best Syrah by far. And there weren't very many back then.
No.
Ever made in California, and he made it with that technique. I have the hiccups. I apologize. You're going to be hearing some really weird sounds coming out of me.
That's all right. You mentioned that when I was a sommelier at Boulay, we had, obviously, as you could imagine, well, no, I mean, there was an extensive California list, but not that many California wines were ordered, because it was such a vast French list. But the one go-to was the Cupé Syrah all the time because, it was so Northern Rhone in its philosophy and being that it really worked with the food. So,
and when we started those companies, Bob was crazy about San Josef wines, crazy about Carnasse wines.
Yeah.
And those wines were selling for $9.95 or less. It was unbelievable. And
yeah,
Bob's
the secret
wine
wasn't out yet.
And then during that period of time that he was growing his company and you were starting to buy them,
yep.
San Josef went up to $32.95 retail, Cornas at $40 retail, and Bob's was still $20, half the money at that point. And so there's just nothing you can say about it. Great value, delicious, complex, and cool climate Syrah.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
As friends and business partners working this together, did you guys put an imaginary line in the sand by saying you're going to do Pinot Noir and he's going to do Rhone varietals and never two shall they meet? Or
no, Bob's making a little bit of Pinot Noir now, a little bit of Syrah that I planted is on my table here under the Clendenen family label. We didn't do that. It's kind of the flip-flop. When we started off, we had empty fermenters at Au Bon Climat. Mm-hmm. Bob was making his wine elsewhere, and so Bob and Adam at the time, Adam Tolmack of OHOT, we all decided to get together and make some really fun wines together. And when a fermenter was empty, we filled it up with the next grape that came along. So Bob and I started a company called Vita Nova, and we made Cabernet Merlot, Cabernet Franc. And it was all about utilizing equipment properly.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Then it started getting crazy, and we started having hot climate Syrah come in before cool climate Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
And all these things started happening, and then we had to just be gentle with our feelings for each other and take care of each other, and we managed to do that. I like to tell people, since this is your storytelling venue, I will tell you that I lived with my parents for 17 years. I got the hell out and never went back.
In Ohio, right? Or you were in Ohio first?
We started in Ohio, and then we ended up in Southern California, and I went to Santa Barbara.
Go Gauchos.
Go Gauchos. I had 14 years with my first wife, 14 years with my second wife. The only thing in my pathetic, unstructured life that I've done for longer than any of those periods of time is share a building with Bob Lindquist.
So. Oh, wow.
Wow, that's a good that's a good work-life marriage.
Yeah,
huh?
that's soulmates. Matt and I only have about 10 years of doing this together.
That's right.
But
you're on your way.
We're on our way.
Well, just to give people who maybe have never been to this area, for anybody obviously who's seen the movie Sideways, this is where that kind of area takes place in Santa Ynez and Santa Barbara County, and the facility that you're talking about is this beautiful. It looks out onto Biennacido, right?
Biennacido,
it's right on Biennacido Vineyards,
right in the heart.
Is it Tentara, like right across the street from you?
No more of it. Yes, it was.
It was. Yeah.
Nobody else who started anything with the Millers is still in business. So
really?
As much as they don't like me and don't like Bob, we're the best they got.
Wait, well, that's not bad at all. We spent a lot of time going out there. In fact, I had an awesome lunch at your facility. The cellar master, or whatever you want to call him, was there.
He cooks when I'm not there.
That's what they said. You weren't there.
When I'm there, I cook.
Bob was showing me around, and he said normally Jim's the one on this grill, but he's out gallivanting around. So we brought in, it was a Hector perhaps, or Edgar, Enrique, and he put some real chicken down. That was awesome, and we were drinking your wine and his wine and Luisa's wine and overlooking one of the most renowned vineyards in Southern California. It's pretty fantastic life you've created for yourself.
Yeah, we still do it. It's a culture that I learned in Europe, brought it back, and it's worked really well for me. Now people think I'm a good cook and they don't give a shit about my wine. Financially, it's a burden.
Now you got to open up a restaurant, and then you can serve your wine there.
And then lose money doing that. As much as you know about running restaurants.
Yeah.
It ain't ever going to
Hell
happen
no.
for me. you know.
Keep your cooking skills up. So let's bring it full circle for a moment, because we're sitting here talking in North Carolina, and you've been a supporter of this event, the Triangle Wine Experience, for a long time now, and coming to North Carolina. So how did you first get involved, and why do you get involved, and why do you still keep coming here?
Well, I mean, there are a couple of parts to that question, and I'll just tell you one of them. North Carolina was long a very important part of my wine distribution. The mother of my children, Morgan Clendenen, the owner of Cold Heaven Winery, was born in Morganton, North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
So we used to come back here all the time. My kids
Get
still
some
come back
ties.
here all the time, which
Gotcha.
is a lot of fun. And we went and did the Triangle Wine Experience before Eliza, before...
Oh, wow.
It was working with Frankie Lemmon, when it was just a regional wine tasting of pretty high access and really good turnout. And when Eliza became a friend of mine, and she at one point bought my auction lots 10 years in a row at the High Museum down in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Your auction lots, it wasn't like go out on a date with Jim Clendenen. You're talking about your auction lots for wine, right?
You know, she got to come and live with me. But
Whoa.
She always brought a boyfriend.
Oh.
We're going to
And,
get
you
the
know,
hot talk on the show.
We have a guest place called Rancho Lacuna with a vineyard, once again set in a vineyard, really interesting house. And so we sell that a lot, and especially after Sideways, which is now 11 years, which is incredible.
Yeah.
So we give them the Sideways package. They come and eat at the Hitching Post, where the book was written and the movie was filmed, with Frank Ostini, and then I cook them lunch at the winery.
There you go again, cooking.
Give them breakfast with the 24 laying chickens, 5 laying pheasants, and 10 laying turkeys that I have in my
Sounds like a Christmas song.
Yeah, no turtle doves.
no turtle dove, but I tell you, for a long time we had a reindeer.
Oh, wow.
It turns out in California, you can't have a deer in captivity unless you have a zoo license.
Really?
Who knew? And my neighbor, who was an asshole, turned us in. And we had food and fish and game.
How would he even know that rule? Excuse me, you're breaking the deer rule.
Yeah. Poor deer probably had the best life ever, you know?
Absolutely.
Eating great wine grapes and just chilling. Seriously.
You just see him in the morning, you'd walk in and he'd be licking the female turkeys on the face.
Yeah, I bet.
Hey, baby.
So, well, Matt, you both have now mentioned Sideways, but that had to have been a widely impactful movie for your industry and even just with tourism, right? I mean, did you notice a significant impact after the movie came out?
Crazy big.
Yeah, right? It was...
So in 2001, I always had 2 release days for my wine. April Fool's Day and Consumption Day.
Good days.
Assumption Day.
Yeah.
And Assumption Day is September 1st.
Oh, okay.
So in my 1999 reserve wines came out in the marketplace in 2001. And that, of course, was when the 2 towers went down and nobody in New York bought a bottle of wine.
Right.
So we always made a little bit more wine. We grew kind of slowly, but consistently, all the way through the 40 years that I've been doing things. And that year was a mess. The following year, we did the same thing. We made about 20% more wine, flat on 01, flat on 03, flat on 04. And then 05, the Sideways movie came out. Because I had leftover wine, I went up 80% in 1 year.
That's crazy.
Sold all my leftover wine and was looking to expand faster and do more at all because of the movie.
It's amazing. Yeah, I've heard you talk about it, how it was a great thing that the movie came out, but it was also, you said something to the effect of the fact that Santa Barbara as a county or a winemaking area was ready. Like the wines were, at that point you had been doing it for 30 years. And so you have vine age, you have years of history and experience to know what you're doing. You're making enough wine to be able to sell that. And then when people are actually coming, the wine delivers.
Absolutely. That was the most important thing.
Yeah.
If somebody would have come in 82, heard through a movie that the Pinot Noir was wonderful in our area and tasted my wine, they'd have walked away.
Right. Like, what is all the hype about?
That movie sucks.
Everybody else's.
That movie lied. But on the side, I mean, it really brought Pinot Noir in vogue. It brought wine in vogue. I mean, it's so funny. I mean, no one can ever guess that certain social phenomena will happen, but it's like Nirvana comes out, changes music. My Big Fat Greek Wedding comes out and changes independent movies, But then this movie, Sideways, comes out and really just kind of dumbed it down for everyone to go, oh, now I understand what wine's all about.
Right.
Cool. And we'll do that. Matt and I even had our own little Sideways weekend shortly around that time and played some golf and went to Hitch and Post and did all that.
Well, I tell everybody that, I think the funny thing is Santa Barbara County is still kind of a hidden gem. Like, it hasn't been Napa-ized. It's still a pretty, cow town almost, farm town. And so the funny thing was for years, even being in the wine business, I had never been to Napa because every time I started out going to Napa, I would always stop off in Santa Ynez and Los Olivos, and I never left. So I'm just okay, I guess I'm not making it up to Napa again because it was so great there.
Well, that story warms my heart.
Yeah.
Just recently, for the first time, Antonio Galloni wrote in his Venice copy that, as far as he was concerned, the best climate for Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and Syrah was Santa Barbara County. And nobody's ever written that before, so I'm getting
Take that, Burgundy.
That almost 40 years after I started at Zaca Mesa, I'm about to become an overnight success.
What do you have a preference in terms of even getting sub AVA geeky like Santa Rita Hills? Do you prefer Santa Maria? Do you prefer? Is there any specific thing
I think right now there's been a new appellation created, Los Olivos, because Fred Brander had to have a Los Olivos appellation. He's been there for as long as me or longer.
Yeah.
I thought forever it was going to be the Santa Rita Hills. They were going to put it there in their own AVA.
They did. They have.
Oh, they have.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
They've had that in for 12 years, 14 years, and they work really, really hard to make themselves distinctive. And I think that's the last thing Santa Barbara needs.
Okay.
I think the whole Central Coast, including the Arroyo Grande, Edna Valley areas, we all have to work together and try to get as much notoriety as we can. And I think the most important thing about that notoriety is the name Santa Barbara is known all over the world. The TV show, the
area, the university. Yeah.
I worked at a restaurant in San Jose called Santa Barbara Grill, and I asked the owners, why is this called Santa Barbara Grill? They're like, because Santa Barbara's pretty cool. I'm like, does it have anything to do with the actual city? Like, nope, we just like Santa Barbara. I'm like, cool, works for me.
Popular restaurant.
Good location.
Yeah, good place to be. Well, we should probably let Jim get back to pouring juice for everybody out here.
Yeah.
Let's just talk a little bit about your actual wines. Would you be able to tell us briefly what's the separation between your family wine label and Alban Climat at this point?
Well, most people that start wineries are well-financed and they want to start their dream. So they plant a vineyard, don't know anything about growing grapes, hire a winemaker, hire a wine salesperson, then declare themselves a winery owner. Yeah. And I kind of do everything backwards. I had my children with my second wife, not my first wife. I might have been doing something wrong.
Hey, 14 years married without a kid? That's probably kind of cool, actually.
Well, a lot of good date nights. Mm-hmm. No babysitter money.
Yeah. So I ended up starting a Climat with my partner Adam Tolmet. Mm-hmm. We worked together for almost 9 years, and I bought the company from him. And what we were doing was mostly picking our own grape in the beginning and then buying grapes later on picked by other people. I started making long-term leases on leased ground to develop vineyards for us, which was pretty cool, and I still have those. If you want to get screwed, do that. If you really want to get screwed, don't own the land. Only own the plants and the wires and the posts. Because even if you break your contract, you can't take any of that with you, even though you've paid for the whole thing to put it in. I've now got 75 acres that are mine on my own dirt, and I decided that I wanted to separate those things, and I started Clendenen Family Vineyards to work with estate fruit.
Okay.
Things that I planted. And it also wasn't limiting me to Burgundian varieties, which Bon Climat is.
Sure. Only
Burgundian varieties. So I've got Petit Verdot out there. I've got Tokai Friulano. I make
Nebbiolo.
The new world's best Nebbiolo. There's
Yeah.
no question about that. And I'll slap down with anybody on that. I've gone to every Nebbiolo conference in the U.S. and I look at people and they go, "How do I make wine like you?" And I go, "Oh, you got to plant it high altitude. You got to get great clones, and then you got to leave it in barrel for 5 years." And they're going, "How could I possibly do that?"
Right.
I have to sell my wine after 9 months, and I'm going, "Then you're not selling Nebbiolo."
Right.
Ask the Italians how they do it. That's what they do. They go, "How do I do that?" And I say, "My idea is that you build a 60,000 case Pinot Noir and Chardonnay company first."
Over 30 years before you,
And that pays the bills, and then you can make very, very homeopathic amount of Nebbiolo.
Yeah.
Well, we reap the benefits of you being able to do that, which is the best part of that whole process.
Yeah, but before I let you go, I do have to understand that because, like, for years in the late 70s, you started this, and your story is well told, and we don't need to get into that now about going to Burgundy and starting a wine business. But how did you to sell the style of wine that you did at that time, meaning very much in balance and not high alcohol and not showy, and certainly not sweet wines, which was of the fashion, especially in the 80s. How did you find that market and be so stick to these, beautiful expressions of true wine and still manage to make a living and support your family to the success that you have now 40 years later?
Timing. There was really nobody doing it. If you went and tasted the Acacia Pinot Noirs, they had many vineyard permutations, and they really thought that they were working in kind of a Burgundian model. Mm-hmm. But the wines didn't taste Burgundian at all. Our wines tasted authentically Burgundian, to the point that people would say, "Oh, your 83 Pinot Noir reminds me a lot of a really shitty vintage from the 70s, like 77 or 75 in Burgundy." And I'm going,
Thanks, I guess.
"Thank you."
Yeah. So
I can't wait until I make one that reminds you of a great vintage.
Yeah, seriously. But is that to say then, so like you found a very specific market of those people that actually at that time were drinking red Burgundy, and
Absolutely.
you're like, we have this in our backyard actually if you just try it.
And we had this great bounce back because I worked with Becky Wasserman.
Yeah.
She was importing a large amount of the best individual domains in Burgundy. Every time that I would meet somebody who was over in Burgundy staying at her house, she'd share a bottle of my wine with them. They'd come and see me, and so I ended up taking my first distributors in Massachusetts, Chicago, different places from Becky. And I didn't pay her, and I didn't get them from her, but they found out about me through Becky.
Because she would give them your wine when they would come. That's cool.
And then we just have a ping pong thing where people would say, "I like this wine," and I can't believe it's made in America. And I was very, very alone at that time. There was nobody trying to make wine like us. If you talk to Helen Turley, she'll tell you she started at the same time, but she was better. And the wines have no relationship to Burgundy or to me.
Right.
But they're the same grape varieties. And then if you talk to, I remember the national sales manager for Kistler at one point when they were starting their Occidental brand, and he said, "We want to make wines that are more Burgundian." And everybody asked him, "Well, we heard in the beginning, that's what you were doing." And he goes, "Well," and of course, he had the same barrels that I had. He had the same orientation, but the wines didn't taste anything. But there was nobody in Burgundy making a wine like that on any level, the Kistler Chardonnays. And so they said, "Well, Jim Clendenen was a friend of yours, and Jim Clendenen started at the same time you did. He wanted to make Burgundian-style wines, and he did. Why didn't you do that?" And so the late Mark Bixler, and a shame what happened to him just after the fire, he said, "We had a different business model than Jim Clendenen," which I think is wonderful because it presumes that I had a business model.
There you go. Don't say anything and let them assume that you're smarter, Yeah. One last question for me before I let you go also. So back in the day at Zaca Mesa, it was you, Adam Tolmack, Bob was there. A bunch of people seem to have come out.
As we left, Lane Tanner came in.
Okay. I mean, that must have been a pretty awesome experience to work about all those future great winemakers and people in the wine business. Must have been pretty inspiring.
Yes. Hugh Johnson said it was a frenetic air of experimentation in the building, and it was a ton of fun. We spent all of our money on blind tastings, And we were lucky. If we wanted to have a tasting of 1970 vintage wines and didn't have a ridge, we'd call the winemaker from Rancho Sisquoc, Mark Smith. He would call his mom, who ran the Sunset Magazine wine cellar. There'd be the bottle we were missing for the tasting for free. And she'd say, "You've got to give us notes." And I'm going, "Oh, we'll give you notes. We'll give you as many notes as you want."
Yeah, awesome. You're going to get notes.
But I've always been lucky that way, and Bob's been lucky. And it was just, if you're pretentious and rich and you reach out for a donation, if you're at the Napa Wine Auction and you're urging people to spend more than $1.3 million on an engraved Rolls Royce with a car full of Napa collectibles in the trunk, you're not going to get a free anything.
Right.
They're gonna charge you corkage fee and tax and tip on the corkage fee.
Yeah.
I don't pay corkage fees.
Yeah. Amen.
Well, that's fantastic. Jim, thank you so much for taking time out coming here and for taking time out to come to North Carolina to be a part of the Triangle Wine Experience. This is fantastic. I think we'll take a break. We're going to see who's next up on the show.
Yeah.
But it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. Thank you, Matt. And thanks for both of you being so prepared to ask me questions about what I actually do instead of fantastical talking points that you come across in stupid interviews.
Oh, yeah, we forgot to ask. What do you think about Kim Kardashian and the new name they're going to pick for their baby?
Exactly. I can't understand how Kylie got pregnant.
I think that's a great note to leave on. Jim, thanks for being down here, and thanks for chatting with us.
You bet.
What does it cost per child to run this school?
The state provides us, on average, about $9,000 per child per year.
Mm-hmm.
If you take the budget of the school and divide by the number of children, it's $28,000 per child per year.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see the gap there is where Triangle Wine comes in.
Yep.
It's not a bigger joy in the world than actually seeing a parent being able to finally communicate with their child. And a lot of children come here not able to do that, and within their first year they're able to do that. And that's just a huge step forward in their life, the quality of life, the parents' the quality of life, and their road to education.
I can only imagine the stress that relieves.
Exactly.
Today, we are visited by Daniel Lewis, president of the Outer Banks Restaurant Association, and also the proprietor of 3 great restaurants out there: Coastal Provisions, Cravings Steak and Seafood, and Coastal Cantina. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're a busy man.
I am.
We've got the 2018 OBX Taste of the Beach Festival happening over the weekend of the 22nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Correct.
And so we're going to be there as judges, and we might get our hands dirty and play around with some cocktails. But, Dan, let's talk about what's going on with that festival and why everybody should show up.
Sure. Well, the Taste of the Beach started probably more than 25 years ago on the Outer Banks as a wintertime locals event. And with the advent of the food culture, Food Network and all that, and additional festivals coming on board, the then president saw what was going on in Charleston with the Wine and Food Festival that's going on down there, and decided to make the Taste of the Beach more than just a single event. So about 2008, I believe, was the first year we switched it to a 4-day event, and invited all of the members to host their own events like wine dinners or tapas crawls or whatnot, and still have it culminate it with a big grand tasting, as we call it, which is more the traditional where all the chefs get together and do their foods and beverages.
So the grand tasting is on Sunday. That's kind of the end of the event, and that's where it culminates. But prior to that, leading up, what are a couple of big events that everybody would be excited about?
Well, we host a couple big events on Friday. We have the Barbecue and Wings Showdown, sponsored by Cisco Foods and Smithfield's, kicking in a bunch of pork for us as well.
Judged by Max and Matt of the NC F&amp podcast.
We hope so.
As well.
You ready for some pork?
Can we have a preview right now?
Unfortunately, no. Actually, so we got that going on Friday afternoon, and that's over across the bridge on Currituck mainland.
Nice.
And then Saturday at my place, I actually host one of the larger events, is the Chowder Cook-Off, which is about 10 years running. We have about 600 people in for that. About a dozen to 18 or so chowder participants on that. And then Sunday, as you mentioned, the grand tasting.
Cool. And to get tickets, can you get a full pass to attend anything, or is it you have to buy individually?
Yeah, all the tickets are available on the website, which is obxtasteofthebeach.com. They are all sold individually, so you can pick and choose at your leisure. As far as if you're only going to be down for 1 or 2 days, you can pick like the Friday, Saturday events. Hopefully, you can stay for the full 4 days. We do have a few events that start on Thursday night as well.
Okay. If you want to be centrally located, where should you stay?
The grand tasting is going to be held at the Hilton Garden Inn in Kitty Hawk, and that's pretty much centrally located. You have the Northern Beaches, the Duck and Corolla restaurant events north of there, and then anything south, Kitty Hawk, Kill Devil Hills, Nag's Head south of there.
So we're going to get started Thursday, March 22nd, and it's going to run Thursday, Friday, Saturday, finish on Sunday, the 25th. So go to obxtasteofthebeach.com, look for the event that suits you best, and hit us up on social while you're there, and maybe we'll give you a little shout out and say hi. So
maybe even pour you a drink.
The website's really set up nicely. You can have search function, so if you want to search by specific restaurant or type of an event, whether it be a tapas crawl or a wine dinner or a specific area, for those of you that might even be interested in hanging out at the Outer Banks for a season or a little longer, we actually also just added a restaurant job board as well, so you can actually go to the Obra tab and find a job.
Work.
Yeah, exactly.
We can use that.
Hang out on the coast.
Yeah, you guys want to hang out for the season? Help us out.
We might just a podcast from out there and eat some great oysters. And
I'm going to need a grand suite at the Sanderling.
Yeah, we'll see if we made that happen. Not.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for giving us your time right here. We will see you in a couple weeks. Matt, what do you got?
Thanks, Daniel. This has been really great to learn about it, and I, for one, am very much looking forward to joining. So,
great, my pleasure.
Everybody, go to obxtasteofthebeach.com. Come out and join us on the Outer Banks from the weekend of March 22nd to the 25th, and you will eat and drink very merrily. One of the coolest new, not that new anymore, wineries, at least new to the Triangle, we'll say, from RYME Vineyards, that's RYME, because we have Ryan and Megan Glaab with us.
Meg Ryan was taken.
There you go.
Wow,
Meg
that
Ryan
joke
wine.
is... You've been writing that joke for a while.
Yeah.
Strong. So, yeah, it's basically like the J-Lo name of names, of wine names. Got it, yeah, RYME. Got it.
Right. So you guys are a husband and wife winemaking team. And then I know you've worked for a former guest of ours, Pax Maley, who has spawned a generation of winemakers as well.
That's right.
One of them's right behind us over here, giving us dodgy looks.
Oh, yeah. Right? You guys worked in the cellar there? We're working with him?
I did, yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay. Mm-hmm. And you worked in other wineries together, no?
We did. So we met working in Australia.
Yeah.
We met at Torbreck. And
right.
Yep. I had been in Australia studying winemaking, and in my final year had to work a harvest, and lo and behold, this handsome hunk walks in and called up my parents and said, I met the guy, surprise, he's from California, and moved back to Sonoma County. Ryan got a job working with Pax, and I was working with Pay, and we planned to just work the harvest, hemisphere hop for a couple of years, and we both were offered full-time jobs and never left the area. I have to say Pax has been instrumental in our business. He really supported us, allowed us to grow within Pax Wine Cellars and Glaab, and that's really unique. And he's really cultivated this community of young winemakers who have a dream and want to, make their business and otherwise couldn't. And so we are fortunate to kind of be in his circle.
Yeah.
So where are your wines coming out of?
So we're based in Healdsburg in Sonoma County, and our wines come from mostly around Sonoma County, a little bit of Napa, Mendocino, that area. We have one vineyard down in Paso Robles. We're kind of focused on Italian varieties. We make Vermentino from Carneros, Aglianico from Paso Robles, some Ribolla Gialla from Napa, Fiano from Sierra Foothills, some Aglianico Rosé, and then Pinot, Chardonnay, and Cabernet Sauvignon.
Where did the inspiration come from for doing Italian varietals?
Drinking.
Nice.
We were always, drawn to Italian varieties and Italian wines. Loved their everyday drinking wines. that were delicious. And I think, every time that you drink Italian wines, you're exposed to something new. There's so many different varieties. There's so many different places. We really love them, and we love the fact that they were beautiful, delicious, and also, long aging. There's a lot of longevity in those wines. So that was our inspiration. Starting with El Lioco was just this beautiful wine that had so much structure, was so effusive aromatically, and
you wanted to make your sales reps really struggle hard and say, I know I could make you a Chardonnay, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this instead.
Well, actually, being one of their sales reps is
Matt's day job.
Yeah, my day job. I represent you guys, and one of the best stories to tell is the story about your Vermentino, because you make 2 Vermentinos. So, do you guys want to tell that story?
That's right. Now this is all coming back to me because we were tasting with Chris and Glenn at Triangle Wine Company, and we were trying.
Oh yeah, you tried.
I was there.
Yeah, you tried Ryan's.
We tried Ryan's Vermentino. Yeah, and that's right, because it was Triangle Wine Company, which is a local retailer, is a sponsor of the podcast, and we were just chatting and hanging out and trying some of Matt's wines in his portfolio. We tried your version, and then he said, and there's also another version. There's Megan's version. So why are there 2 versions?
Why are there 2 Vermentinos?
Yeah.
Well, go.
Sure. We're both winemakers by training. We share all of our duties in the winery. It's a very small business. We're 3 people now, and it's kind of like having 2 chefs in the kitchen. So we have different outlooks on what we want to do, and we're very lucky that we share philosophies and tastes on virtually all of our wines, and agree most of the time. But this is one instance where we disagreed on our vision for those wines and what we saw in those wines, our expectations of
so describe
what the Vermentino was to us in this site. And so Megan's wine is a more traditional take on Vermentino, very bright, fresh, and aromatic, very linear, and for drinking in the sun. Mine is ferment on the skin, so treated just like our red wines, and whole cluster ferment on the skins for about 2 weeks, and so more texture, somewhere like a light red wine.
For those who don't know, that's kind of the basis of orange wine.
Exactly.
Treating white wine like a red wine, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so
you're a hipster, is what we're saying.
Virtually, yeah.
Yeah. You do have the beard, so that's cool. Check that box. But yeah, we were looking at this, how tight your jeans were, just making sure.
Yeah. Okay. No.
So yeah, but yeah, so that's kind of like a new way of doing stuff. In a way, I mean, I don't know, it's new old, right? Like,
yeah,
that's like old Slovenian style making wines, but it's en vogue now again because it's kind of people. It was like a lost art, if you will, and now it's kind of coming back. I mean, the hipster restaurants in Venice have red, white, and orange categories on their wine list. It's just
you're saying Venice, California.
Venice, California. Yeah, like Jelena, I remember, has like the orange section. Like, how many people actually order wines off this list? He's like, here all the time.
Right?
Like, really? Like, well, yeah, because if you're here, you want to experiment and try cool stuff. So yeah, people are ordering that type of wine. So,
but it's a great conversation because the first fundamental question that we ask ourselves as winemakers when the fruit arrives in the winery is, are we going to ferment this whole berry, or are we going to ferment it as juice? And that's the start of everything.
Yeah.
And that goes with rosé.
every wine. With every wine,
because think about that. Think about if a red wine lands in and you decide to ferment it off its skins, you now have rosé. So you're creating a very different style. And what I love about the his and the hers, despite a working marriage and disagreeing on what you want to do, is it's a great example of how you get the exact same fruit. You have the same product to start with, the same produce, and then you make one decision differently and you have a completely different wine.
Yeah.
And even though it's from the same single vineyard, same place, same vintage, everything.
Same vintage, but but more importantly, same pick date. For the most part, it's always been the same pick date. So we have the same sugar levels, we have the same acid levels, and you have a very, very different wine.
That's cool.
And
do you guys have like a personal bet
all the time?
Do you have a personal bet as to who's going to sell?
More?
Yeah,
Well,
and who's leading right now? That's what I want to know.
I have way more.
You know the going question in the market that I get from everybody once I tell them the story is, oh, well, that's sexist. Why is his more?
Because the cost of it is more. But you know what? I make 10 times more.
That's right.
So she's keeping the lights on. And
if only we had the video portion for that exchange between the two.
But I love that. There's some playful competition within each other's, and that kind of gives an example of even like I can just imagine that's the dynamic of your relationship in a little bit. You guys are headstrong, you want to do your thing, but you're also willing to let the other person to do their thing. So
it's
that's
like
pretty
Max
cool.
and Felicia with battle how many Instagram followers they each have.
I am about to eclipse her real quick.
Here we go.
No, the wines, they both have their own. They both have their own purposes, you know, and it's not like either of us prefer one or the other. They work for very different purposes.
Tell me, there was an actual argument though, like you guys were upset at each other at some point about this whole Vermentino thing.
Oh, a little bit.
It was definite. It was like it was funny because we had secured the vineyard source, which was already tough. We trespassed, we hopped a fence, went somewhere we should not have been, called the grower and said, oh, we saw that you had Vermentino, will you sell it to us? And he reluctantly agreed. He never had sold Vermentino before. And then we get down to planning out vintage, and we in harvest we plan out movements. So what tank are we going to be in? When's the fruit going to come in? And of course, these are all estimations. We're lining out the harvest, and Ryan's like, oh, we're going to put it in this open top as we're skim fermenting. I'm like, what are you talking about? We're making white wine from it. And he's like, no, we're not. We're making orange wine. And we went back and forth, and there's no in between.
Yeah.
I was not going to give up. Ryan was not going to give up. There's no in between. So we had to have our own. And that first year, we only were allocated 2 tons. So we just made 50 cases. And
was it split down the middle, 25 and 25 cases?
50-50.
No, 50 each, yeah.
Oh, 50 cases each.
Yeah, 50 cases each.
But we were already making a Ribolla orange wine, and I love the kind of juxtaposition of those two wines.
Yeah.
And the Ribolla is very savory and very structured, and the Vermentino is more fun and engaging and just juicy and delicious. And
what do you?
And that was my kind of position, and Megan said that's fucking stupid. We don't need 2 orange wines. So we're just not gonna do that.
Well, Vermentino, be bright, fresh, Ligurian style.
So what does one eat with an orange wine? Like what?
Everything.
If you gave me that bottle, like what's like a go-to? Because that's such a broad answer. That's like a non-answer.
No, but I think that is the thing about orange wines that is so wonderful. If you put it on a dinner table, so Ryan's Vermentino, it works beautifully with salads that have vinegar. It works wonderful with oysters, but it also goes into fatty, rich meat dishes, and it cuts through it because it has a little bit of structure and tannin on the back, and it cuts through that. That's the thing that I really love about orange wines is they really work so well at the dinner table. And when we're creating wines, we think about it as something that connects people, and that you sit down and you're eating and drinking and enjoying. It's meant to be consumed and to be have a place in the dinner table.
So so clearly, Megan, you're a fan of the wine. I take it. So this sounds to be like Megan was being the practical one that said, no, we need to actually sell this wine. Yeah. And so like Vermentino will sell. It's already going to be a tough sell because it's Vermentino and it's not Pinot Grigio or something, and we're in California. So we need to sell this wine, and you're like, no, but I want to be like cool. I want to make some good wine. I want to do something that sets us apart. So I kind of like the blend. You've got both, but yeah, as you just said, Megan, you're outselling him 10-1. Is that right?
Yeah. But on the flip side, I really wanted. Come on, all of us, even in the wine industry, when you're out on the beach and it's hot and sunny, you want something delicious,
right?
And
all those days I spend on the beach,
salty and
with a bottle of wine in my hand. I mean,
You don't.
that's an
Okay.
idyllic situation, but it happens never.
Poolside, guys. Poolside.
Yeah, there you go.
We drink a lot of wine on the beach.
Yeah, well, there you go.
That was
Your
a-
life sounds
there-
way better than mine.
Come to California.
I'm usually at the YMCA. I've got floaties and people screaming and yelling. Most of the people are drinking wine, but they're in koozies or like
red Solo cups,
Yeti coffee
Yeah.
containers. It's like, well, there's a lot of ice being jingled around in that glass. There's no way you're having water. That's the Raleigh way. That's how we do things at the public pools.
It's a good quality life. You guys are here in North Carolina. How'd you get involved with Triangle Wine Experience?
Back to PAX. We've been hearing for a long time from him how amazing this event was.
Yeah.
We were actually invited by our cork supplier, Vinovations, and they brought us out here. Today we went and saw the Frankie Lemmon School, which I have to say was amazing and very touching. We do a lot of wine events. But to have a wine event that actually goes to a greater cause and a greater meaning, and having 2 children ourselves, and knowing how important it is to support all of our children, it was really touching, and we hope to be part of it, moving forward for, as long as we can. Yeah.
The money from the Triangle Wine Experience goes to support the Frankie Lemmon Foundation. The state, North Carolina, can fund these schools, but only so much. The additional percent of what's made up is by generous contributions from the community, and one of the biggest ways they're able to do that is by doing this event. So there are 40 restaurants mixed with 40 wineries, and they all do a dinner on Thursday night, and it's an amazing thing. I said this earlier, but this might be...
It bears repeating.
This is a really good cause.
Oh, it's amazing. And to walk into that school and see how they're loved and taken care of, and smiles on all of the kids' faces. I mean, I have goosebumps talking about it. It was really great. And to be out here for that cause is really remarkable.
Yeah. Matt, do you have anything else?
No. Well, thank you guys for hopping on the mics for a few minutes at the end of the day. I know there's 2 events left in this great Triangle Wine Experience that we have going on, but it means a lot for us, for you guys to be down there and participate in this great cause, and just to put North Carolina also on the map as a wine community. So thanks for coming, and continue to make these delicious wines.
Oh,
thank you guys. Thank you so much for the support. It's great to be here.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Wonderful to be here.
Get your rhyme on when you're out there.
His and hers.
Yeah.
That's right. We'll tell you where to get it.
Hers.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Eat and drink merrily.
On our second installment of the Triangle Wine Experience, we feature conversations with Hirsch Vineyards General Manager Jasmine Hirsch and 3-time James Beard Award-winning author, sommelier, and winemaker Rajat Parr. If you would like to know more about the Frankie Lemmon School and the Triangle Wine Experience, visit their website at frankielemonschool.org. That's frankielemonschool.org.
Thanks for listening to the NC F&B podcast. And if you've stuck with us this long, review us on iTunes, and remember, 5 stars are encouraged.